Okay, here we are, back at the bench, and here we have a Fender Twin, which rolled off the production line at Fender's factory in the United States in the latter half of the year 2000. We can determine that quite accurately, really, although this one hasn't got any dated quality control stickers on the inside, certainly not of any dates, but we can determine that by other means. And on the other side there are various, I can't show you really, but here's one. There's 3-4 transformers there, and they have a date code on them, and the date code for them is week 31, which is the first week of August, 00, which is year 2000. So this one's 23 years old, and it's come in with a bag load of problems. It's been a bit of a nightmare. It's taken me ages to sort this out. It had really excessive background white noise hum. These always hum quite a lot anyway, these particular Fenders amp. You know, you've got 100 watts and you've got 12 valves in there, and a mains transformer's not very quiet anyway, so they always hum to a certain extent. But this had excessive hum, plus it was crackling and popping. Usually those two problems are separate, but sometimes it can be due to just one particular item. For example, if the valves, particularly the power valves, are excessively worn, they can cause high levels of hum, white noise and crackling. Otherwise, the white noise background issue can be a separate problem, and the crackling and popping can be anything from valves to capacitors, high tension capacitors in particular, the high voltage ones, broken dry joints anywhere in the circuit. Certain resistors are prone to that as well, and these drop-in resistors, this is a 10 watt one I replaced, but they can cause that problem as well. Basically what I did, first of all, I removed all the valves and put them through the valve test, and they all perfect, no problem whatsoever. The power valves in this have been replaced by tube amp Dr. 1 sometimes in the past, and they are working perfectly. Just to be double sure, I subbed in good valves of my own, just to make sure I wasn't going down the wrong path here, and I put a complete set of my own valves in here, and that the problem remained exactly the same, so we could exclude valve issues. The valve bases can get quite worn, loose and corroded. I cleaned all them and nipped them up, and that made absolutely no difference. One of the most common problems with an old Fender, so this one's 23 years old, is problems with these high tension capacitors. They're rated at 500 volts. They tend to fail quite early compared to low voltage ones, and they start to leak electrolyte. And here's one. See that brown goo at the top? That's electrolyte coming out. And that's another one, exactly the same. That's electrolyte. So one of the jobs you've got to do is replace all these high tension capacitors, and they are not cheap. Everything's so expensive now, valve amp repairs. So I think I played, let's have a look, have a quick note. How did I do? That's the two large ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think I changed about 12 or 14 on this board up here, and that was expensive. And unfortunately, that made no difference. Believe it or not, even with brand new ones in, no difference whatsoever. And that is unusual, because normally that would make a big difference. So I begin to think I got an elusive problem here, which is not going to be the normal run-of-the-mill issues. So I started going through this amp. I lifted out this main board here, checked on the underside, and resoldered everywhere, and replaced this this dropping resistor here. The first one was in there, the sort of cement type one, that was extremely microphonic. You could tap it and that come through on the speaker, on the test speaker there. So I put a new one in, a better one, a 10 watt. The original ones are rated at 7 watts. This is a 10 watt one. It's better quality. And that reduced the background sound slightly. So I was on a winning streak here. And another problem can cause excessive white noise on Fender amps in particular. I've had it before. Is the plate resistors, 100k kilo ohm plate resistors, particularly on the preamp valves. I've had issues with them before on Fenders, and you've got to lift all this out, board. You've got to undo all these controls and remove everything to get this and turn it over to the other side, because all these resistors and whatever capacitors, coupling capacitors, are all on the other side. So I've done that, and I changed all the plate resistors, I changed all the coupling caps, and at the same time I reflowed everything, and particularly on the pots, because they can fracture quite easily, the solder joints, and cleaned all the pots with cleaning fluid, put it all back on, and that was slightly better, so a slight improvement. I was still going through this amp because I wasn't happy with it, and I checked and resoldered every connection on every valve base in this amp, and it appeared to me that was just a little better than before. And I come down to this one, the reverb pot here, pot 6, valve base 6. These cables here on this reverb here, as soon as you got near them, without even touching them, they started, the white noise started to raise up. And if you touched them with like this wooden handle here, they get really noisy. So from past experience, my view on that is the best way to deal with that is to actually remove these 3 wires, and I replaced them with shielded cable, as you can see here. It's all shielded cable, and the ground is then taken to this grounding point here. And once I'd done that, I tested it, and that's a bit quieter still, but still too loud for my liking. Then I thought, I wonder if we've got an earth issue here. So what I'd done was, I took this is a good little method. I can find a cable to show you. Hang on with me, I'll be with you in a second. Yeah. I took an alligator cable, so the ground's in there, on the shielded cable I put on there, and I mounted it on the chassis. So I've effectively, temporarily put another ground on there, and that made a substantial difference. The white noise level dropped to a manageable and tolerable and acceptable level. So basically, in the end, I fitted and soldered another ground, which is down to the grounding point on the amplifier here, which is the factory grounding point, which is just in there. See it? Soldered the 2 here, and that made a lovely improvement. What the other thing was, oh yeah, these connectors, 3 pins of connector, it's easy to fracture the solder joints on the underside when you disconnect this and remove it, and they were fractured, and I resoldered them. Then I still had a little crackle, but not much of one. Then there's these connectors, these horrible ribbon connectors. I took them off and cleaned them and put them back on, and that got rid of the crackle. Yeah, once it's warmed up a little bit, it settles down quite nicely. It's not unusual for an old valve amp when you first switch them on to crackle a bit, just for a minute or two till they settle, and then that's it. That's quite normal. I cleaned everything. I reflowed the impedance selector because I noticed that made a difference as well. Reflowed everything on there. So basically it was a case of, oh yeah, I replaced one 450 ohm grid resistor. What was it? Screen resistor. Yeah, and that just about made it. That's a lot of work. It took me a long time. At least I didn't replace any valves on this one, because it would have been mega expensive. Because four output tubes, a matched pair of them is at least 120 quid just for them. And that's not including any preamp valves if you had to change them, plus all the other work. I think it's about up to 70 quid just for the capacitors and stuff. Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, look at my notes. As you can see, this amplifier is really quite advanced and technical for its time. And there's a lot of stuff going on in it. Oh yeah, one of the most important things I nearly forgot to tell you. When Fender ship these amps out from their factory in USA for Europe, yeah, the transformer is an export transformer in here. It's on the other side of this board here, and it's a multi-tap. It's got a tap for 240 volts for the United Kingdom and Australia. It's got a 230 tap for continental Europe, and it's got a 100 volt tap for Japan. Fender don't even bother to set, they just set them to 230 volts and send them to UK or Europe, wherever they're going, but not Japan obviously, and they just leave them at 230 volts. So all the ones you get here in UK, and this applies to most Fender amps in UK, they're running too hot because they got a 230 volt wide transformer and you're whacking 240 volts. In fact, yesterday the line voltage here when I was working on it was 245. It can fluctuate a little bit, usually goes up a little bit sometimes during the day, but usually it settles around 240. There's some variance, but it's not 230. So everything is overloaded. Everything's running hotter, there's more tension, there's more noise, background noise, everything. I reset the tap, I retapped it for 240 volt, and that made a lovely difference. Everything quietened down, the heat dropped off. It just much better, as it should have been done in the first place. And yeah, that was it. Let's see if anything else on my notes. Anything else? Let's have a look. Oh yeah, one of the advantages of this model is you've got test points for bias and bias balance, and two controls here, one there for adjusting it, and the instructions for what it should be with your multimeter are on there. 0.08 volts for bias and 0 volts for balance. It's dead simple to do with a multimeter set on 2 volt range. So I reset that. Yeah, I'm going to put it back in the chassis. I've had it running here on the bench. I'm happy with it. I'm going to, as I say, put it back in. It's heavy as hell. They're so heavy, these amps. I cannot lift the whole amp in one go up the stairs. It's too heavy, so I take the chassis out downstairs and bring the chassis up to the workbench and take the chassis back downstairs and reinstall it when I'm done in the cabinet. So yeah, yeah, that's about it really. What's frustrating repair? Very frustrating. There's so much going on in these amps, and everything is so close together. You know, it's a recipe for problems. You know, and anyway, That's all for now. Bye bye.